This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, so I'm here with a tutorial for D.va's gun, and I'm just going to jump right into it. So what I am doing here is tracing out the patterns that are available on my Patreon page onto different thicknesses of EV foam, aka craft foam. And how I choose the thicknesses was just as I go along, I kind of fit some of the pieces together that are supposed to fit together to make sure that I'm not pieces that I kind of just like freehand, like you see here, that I mentioned earlier. I just attach part of it. Like, I don't attach the entire piece because some of it is over the edge, like you could see there, and I need to still modify it. So I don't fully glue it down. I just glue around the edges that I know are already okay and don't need to be altered in any way. Also, before attaching this black piece that you see here, I took a heat gun to it and kind of added a bit of a curve, which you can kind of see if you look at it, because it was just way too flat. Into the insulation foam part of the gun, that means the barrel isn't as round as it should be. So what I did to fix that was take a rectangular piece of craft foam and bent that and glued that into place so that it was more rounded rather than just a flat square where the barrel was. Once a majority of the pieces are glued into place, at least all of the pieces that you can see here, which are the ones that lay flat onto the gun rather than around the edges, I take a box cutter and just go around the edges, cutting off any of the excess pieces and making sure everything is even and smooth and just flows. place. And to create a couple of the little details that got lost when I was sanding, just because it's kind of hard to shape this stuff sometimes, I'm just taking craft foam and cutting those into the shapes that I need them to be and basically freehanding it.
I'm just trying to get mine. He's at it again. He's at it again. It happened, my friend. I tell him cause I'm only in the city for a minute. And I know that you've been trying to get in it. And I'm waiting, but you're looking like you fell in love tonight for pizza.
Using a soldering iron, I am adding in the details that are on the various pieces, as you can see here, to find like how to lay them out. I did try to freehand it at first, but then I didn't like it, and so before ever touching the soldering gun, I went ahead and traced out the other pieces. Like, I cut out the pattern and then traced those into place, and then I had the exact placing I wanted.
I was trying to give you days and some fast brain. You were trying to give me K's in your last name. Boy, I think I should leave. There's a flaw in the system. I don't really know why, but I miss him. There was something in his eyes when I kissed him. Listen, feeling like I can't this. For Pete's sake, so we pull it together. Cause you've got a girl and she thinks it's forever. I know she'd love you if you don't let her. Cause I'm a mistake and we both could do this. You saw the truth in me.
So I'm about to use the soldering iron on the insulation foam, and that part is a little tricky because insulation foam doesn't really take heat well or need much heat. So what I do when carving is I don't even touch the insulation foam with the tip, because the heat coming off of the soldering iron is already hot enough to kind of like indent it.
I'm just trying to get mine. He's at it again. He's at it again. It happened, my friend. I tell him cause I'm only in the city for a minute. And I know that you've been trying to get in it. And I'm waiting, but
and now I just freehand cut out the pieces that are like the little bolts and switches or whatever that thing that I just placed on her gun is, and I'm just gluing those into place. Of course, everything is again made out of craft foam.
usually you don't be used to me using you. You saw the truth in me. This is all new to you. Damn, this is love in the fast lane. New Benz top down with the I was trying to give you days and some fast brain. You were trying to give me K's in your last name. Boy, I think I should leave. There's a flaw in the system. I don't really know why, but I miss him. There was something in his eyes when I kissed him. Listen, feeling like I can't this.
And now that we finally have everything glued onto the gun and into place, I go ahead and cover or coat the entire gun in wood glue to seal everything in place, add extra strength, then prime it for paint. And I do about 7 or 8 layers of wood glue, letting it fully dry in between each.
You saw the truth in me. saw the truth in me, I don't have the time. Maybe you saw the truth in me. I don't have the time. I don't have the time. I'm just nice. I don't have the time. I'm just trying to get mine. He's at it again. He's at it again. It happened, my friend. I tell him 'cause I'm only in the city for a minute, and I know that you've been.
Originally, I was going to make the rabbit head keychain out of insulation foam. As you can see, I have it drawn out there. But I decided I really didn't want to have to try to carve and sand and prime more insulation foam. So instead, I used clay. So because this was sort of last minute, I used the only clay I had available, which was air dry clay, but that is very fragile compared to other clays. So if you are going to use clay, I definitely recommend some sort of polymer or oven-baked clay. And basically it's just a lot of sculpting until everything looks right. Originally I tried to get the weird points that the rabbit ears have by using my finger, but as you can see here, instead I figured, oh, you know what? Using an X-Acto knife would be a lot easier and more precise, and that's what I ended up going with. And before it dries, I stick an eye pin in it so that I have something to attach the chain to.
You saw the truth in me.
After about 5 or 3-ish layers of wood glue, I apply Bondo's gap filler all around the edges to fill in any dips and gaps and make sure everything is smooth. So once that is dry, I go ahead and sand it down, and any place that needs more, once it's fully sanded, I apply a second coat, wait for that to dry, and sand it down again until everything is as smooth as I want it to be.
It happened, my friend. I tell him 'cause I'm only in the city for a minute, and I know that you've been trying to get in it, and I'm with it, but you're looking like you fell in love tonight. For Pete's sake, so me pull it, take it up and down. It was kinda whatever. Maybe alright. Usually you don't be used to me using you. You saw the truth in me. This is all new to you, damn. This is love in the fast lane. New Benz top down with the I was trying to give you days and some fast brain. You were trying to give me K's in your last name. Boy, I think I should leave.
Once all of that is sanded down, I go ahead and finish it off, at least these steps of priming. I finish that off by doing a couple more layers of wood glue, and by the end, like I said earlier, I had about 7 or 8 total layers of wood glue.
You saw the truth in me. saw the truth in me, in me, in me. I don't have the time. Maybe you saw the truth in me. I don't have the time.
And now for the painting part. I prime it with this spray paint primer thing that's a bit of a filler and it's sandable. And then I went ahead and used silver spray paint for the parts that were supposed to be gray. Obviously it got on other areas, but it didn't really matter. So for the other areas that needed to be different colors than gray, instead of going through and taping up everything and spray painting it with more spray paint in the correct colors, I went ahead and just used acrylic paints and painted those on. And this was a bit time consuming, but I feel like I was able to be more precise with like around the edges and making sure everything was colored correctly and didn't spill into other areas than I would have been if I used spray paint. Obviously, as you can see here, one layer of acrylic paint, at least for certain colors like this pink color, did not do the job. So I did go through once it was fully dry and do about 3 layers total.
I was trying to give you days and some fast brain. You were trying to give me K's in your last name. Boy, I think I should leave. 'Cause there's a flaw in the system. I don't really know why, but I miss him. There was something in his eyes when I kissed him. Listen, feeling like I can't this. For Pete's sake, so we pull it together. 'Cause you've got a girl and she thinks it's forever. I know she'd love you if you didn't let her. 'Cause I'm a mistake.
To create that little decal that D.va has on her gun, as you can see there, I just kind of created a stencil on a piece of paper and then dabbed on paint. And originally I went through to outline it with a black Sharpie, but that didn't work as well as I wanted, so I just took a thin paintbrush and created the black lines with paint. And to semi-top it all off, I went ahead and just painted in the green parts. So I originally used that green folder for that part of the barrel, but I forgot to cover it when I was spray painting, so I had to go back and paint it in the end anyways. I had totally forgot the little white numbers that were on her gun, so make sure you guys don't forget that step. Although it is fairly easy to go back in later and add that in, which I will be doing. And to actually finish it off, I gave it a few coats of glossy spray paint and then attached the keychain, as you can see I'm doing here, and that's basically it for this tutorial. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and check out my other video to see how I built the headset. Have a lovely day. Bye!